krameṇādbhiḥ śuddhaṁ kanakam pāṁsu-vyavahitaṁ yathāgnau karmāraḥ pacati bhṛśam āvartayati ca tathā yogācāro nipuṇam doṣa-vyavahitaṁ viśodhya kleśebhyaḥ śamayati manaḥ saṁkṣipati ca. Saundarananda, 1568. Once more with feeling. I've been tinkering a little bit with the translation again. The verse is so dense with meaning. It's worth going through every word. Krameṇā means literally, it's the instrumental of krama, which means step. Krama. So step by step, methodically. But I like gradually, because when I reflect on these two verses, 1568 and 1569, in a future talk, I'll go through the 8 thoughts, linking them to these 9 verses, the 8 in Śikhariṇī meter and the one in Ati-dhriti meter. So I found that if I link those verses to the 8 thoughts of a great person, this verse is a good starting point, and 1569 is a good ending point. So 1569 makes one think of prajna and prapanchopashama, the 7th and 8th of the thoughts of a great person. And this verse, especially the first word krameṇā, really makes one think of the principle of working incrementally, setting the bar nice and low to begin with, starting off small and growing from the ground up. So krameṇā, I've translated methodically, step by step, but here I'm translating it now gradually. So ādbhiḥ, with water. See, the elements is gold, dirt and water. So in order to wash the gold clean, we wash the dirt away with water, with something else. That is somehow related with emptiness. Gold, water, earth. Gold, water, dirt. Nothing exists separately as a thing unto itself. Śuddhaṁ, cleansed, washed. Kanakam, that's one word for gold, of which there are many. In the next verse we have suvarnam, another word for gold. Iha, in this world. So the goldsmith is working here and now. In this world. It's a practical metaphor for practical endeavour. Pāṁsu, dirt. So again, it's a starting point because it relates to Marjorie Barlow's words that being wrong is the best friend we've got in this work. You see, if you're a gold miner, it's not that you love gold. if you're a gold miner, you have to appreciate water, and you have to appreciate dirt as well. Patavisamam rahula bhavanam bhavehi. Cultivate the practice of cultivating rahula like earth, like dirt, if you like the earth, like the dirt. Vyavahitam, separated. So the vyavahita, separated, and vivikta, separated, are different words, but they're very similar meaning. So I'm referring to the vivikta, vivikte in the end of Canto 14, where the Buddha praises practicing vivikte in seclusion, separated from the world that delights in duality and is distracted to the core by objects. Pāṁsu-vyavahitaṁ, separated from dirt. Yathā, just as. āvartayati, in the fire or at the furnace. Has a double meaning. The goldsmith, he's working at the furnace. It's like, if you can't stand the heat, get out of the kitchen. It has that connotation. He's not piddling around, with his nose permanently stuck in a book of poetry, which is, this is poetry. This is not to deny the value of the beauty of poetry, but it's poetry pointing to action speaking louder than words. The goldsmith is sweating at the furnace. He's melting the gold in the fire. Karmāraḥ means a smith, but at the same time it's cognate with karma. He's a worker, a man of action. Pacati literally means he heats, he bakes, but in this context he's melting the gold. Bhṛśam, repeatedly, frequently, and that goes with āvartayati. He turns it over, so he turns it over repeatedly. He turns it over again and again. So this makes me think of our daily practice, or my daily practice. I go back every morning to the 8 thoughts of a great person. Alexander said, never let a day go by without coming back to those directions. It makes me think of the 4 kinds of clinging as well. I mentioned before that I had 3 times in my life where I've had this like jagged pain in my stomach. And when I reflect on that, in light of the 4 kinds of clinging, the first time I had that when I was 24, when my then girlfriend started going out with my old best friend. So it was like a real stab in the stomach. And that was, from that, I learned the pain of clinging to love, karmāraḥ. Karmāraḥ means clinging to love. So that was the usefulness of that experience. And I snapped out of it by directing my energy into, I changed my job from English teaching to copywriting. So that sort of, directing my energy into that work was the solution. And then when I was 34, I had the pain again at the end of the Shobogenzo Book 1 publication, where I was absolutely exhausted. My nervous system was shattered, and I thought I knew how to get out of that. So what I did lots of zazen and stretching and running and weight training, doing more and more exercise to get myself. For me, doing the exercise was always a way of like getting full of endorphins and feeling good. But it wasn't working. The pain in the stomach was getting worse and worse. And then I remembered 10 years beforehand, when I'd been in America, Zen Center in San Francisco, I'd heard of the FM Alexander technique. So that was, I ordered 2 books on the Alexander technique from the Marizen bookstore near where I used to work. And when those books arrived, my life just changed instantly. I was heading in a new direction of growth, and the pain in the stomach just disappeared. So that was drishtyopadana. I was clinging to a view. It was a view that I'd had before from rugby and karate. It was like the value of doing, you see, and Nishijima Roshi's teaching really just reinforced that view, that I was a man of action, I thought, and doing, if in trouble, do more. So the Alexander principle was opposite. If in trouble, well, if successful, do less, and if it's working, do even less, keep doing less. Marjorie used to say, if successful, do less. So that I was clinging to a view, and then with the Alexander technique, that enabled me to let go of that view. So that was drishtyopadana. Then when I was 47, 48, when Nishijima Roshi appointed Brad Warner his successor, it's like a story of myself that I believed in, that had sustained me. You know, I'd come to doubt it later on. I doubted it from the beginning. I couldn't really believe that I was going to be Nishijima Roshi's, successor, like Master Taiso Eika was the Master Bodhidharma. I fantasized about that, being the one who silently did his prostrations, to show his great understanding, the man of action who knew that action speaks louder than words. But it didn't work. It didn't work out, because the action that speaks louder than words, that spoke to Master Bodhidharma of Master Taiso Eika, was not the action of the doer. Master Taiso Eika was not the doer, and Master Bodhidharma was not the doer. So even with the Alexander technique, if I had a chance of becoming the non-doer, Nishijima Roshi had no chance of becoming the non-doer, because he was stuck on the view of doing. When I tried to tell him that what was wrong with this, he just doubled down. So there it was. But I understood it on one level, but when he actually appointed Brad Warner his successor, that's hit me on a deeper level. It's like you go into ice water, beforehand that it's going to be cold, and you think you're ready for it, but actually it's still a shock. It's at the physical level. You get in the ice water, and it's stronger than your shit, as Wim Hof says. So that decision on Nishijima Roshi's part was stronger than my shit. It really actually it showed me that I was clinging to a story of myself, which couldn't be sustained. Atmavad or padana. That's the third kind of clinging. Then the fourth kind of clinging is shilavrat or padana, clinging to shila, good practice. Which, like you say, Alexander work is a kind of perfect example of shila, good practice. virtuous conduct, using yourself well. And vrata, vows of practice, like, for example, I vowed a long time ago that I sit 4 times, practice zazen 4 times every day, and I've been pretty much following that vow for the last 40 years. But that's still a fault, because if you cling to it, shila vrata badana is still clinging. In Alexander terms, it's trying to be right. When I think about that, I remember Marjorie Barlow's words. We're all going around the whole time trying to be right. And I include myself, she used to say, in her 80s. So, when I reflect on that, bhṛśam āvartayati cha. He melts the gold and then he turns it over and over and over again. We keep coming back. We should study the backward step of turning the light and letting it shine. We keep coming back to the backward step. We keep coming back to not trying to be right, not end gaining. It's not entering the stream. So that's the third of the 3 fetters, shila, vrata or badana, that prevent us from entering the stream. The first 3 fetters is atma-drishti, the view of the self, vicikitsa, doubt, and shila, vrata or badana, clinging to virtue and vows. So in my experience, it's not that you enter the stream just once, and that's it, you're in the stream. Bhṛśam āvartayati. Like the goldsmith, we keep going round and round and round. Keep coming back to it. Keep coming back to the basic fundamental thing, not trying to be right. And then cha, just simply, it just means and, but at the same time, I think I want to emphasize it with then and then. You can't turn over, you can't keep coming back without something melting. It's not like he melts the gold and then he turns it over and over. He can't turn it over and over before he's melted it. It's in that order. Something has to soften, something has to let go. Then we can come back again to the basics, to keep repetitive practice, but not mindless repetition. It's like related to nipuṇam in the next line. Tathā. Tathā means so. In the same way. Yogācāro. Yoga, practice, yoga. Acāra, a practitioner, a yoga practitioner, which is a practitioner of practice, a yoga practitioner. Nipuṇam. So I've discussed before. Nipuṇam means not mindless repetition, not the kind of not even the useful work of the guy who digs the earth for water, or the skilled bushman, bushcraft exponent like Ray Mears, or someone who knows the method of making fire by twirling a stick and actually perseveres until he actually makes a flame. The Buddha sort of praised that kind of effort, but at the same time, prayukta yoge tu, one whose effort is harnessed to yoga, the two, as I discussed before, it contrasts, because this work of the yogācāro is nipuṇam. it's done intelligently, skillfully, but more than skillfully, it's with delicacy and accuracy, because the effort is to separate the mind from harm, and that involves shila, good practice, but then samadhi, balanced stillness, but then prajna, understanding. It's like in Alexander work, the letting, the non-doing. The non-doing comes from understanding. We can't do a non-doing by relying on our old habit. There has to be, the conscious mind must be quickened. It relates to that drutam nityam yantyo, rivers that flow, yantyo drutam, swiftly, and nityam, constantly. It's what's translated as mindfulness, but it's got nothing to do with sucking raisins. It's a quickening of consciousness that separates you from doing. That's harmful. That's ultimately separating our mind from harm, like separating gold particles from dirt. It relies on that nipuṇam, that quickened consciousness. F.M. Alexander said the conscious mind must be quickened. It's thinking, but not as people understand thinking. None of you, he said, none of you knows how to think. It's very practical effort, not intellectual thinking. It's what separates us from doing. It's what Nishijima Roshi did not understand. If he'd understood, he would never have corrected people's posture in such a gross way. That is the simple fact of the matter. He didn't understand. He believed in Zen realism. Mike Latchford drew my attention to a blog post that he made, I think in 2007, where he says Dogen Sangha really exists in this world, on this earth. It really exists. At the same time, he criticised Mike Latchford's idea as being not so concrete, abstract. That was the distinction he made, was between the real and the not real. The action, really doing things, and the intellectual. But that's not the distinction the Buddha makes between dharmas and samskaras. The division that the Buddha made, the distinction the Buddha made, was between what happens, dharmas, and samskaras, what we fabricate. And doing belongs to fabrication, samskara. Samskaras is cognate with doing. The kara of samskara is doing. So samskara means done together, confected. Confections. To sit like this is to manifest a confected thing. It's not allowing growth. The distinction is between two philosophies: emptiness, which conduces to growth, and the net zero of the ignobles who told us 500 years ago to be or not to be. That is the question. No, that's not the question. How to grow is the question. To grow via emptiness or not to grow via net zero. That's the question. Nipuṇam iha. So that's the question in this world. It's not a question in the spiritual world, which is separate from the practical world. The yoga practitioner is concerned with what happens without distinction between this world and that world. Iha, in this world, here and now. Doṣa-vyavahitaṁ, doṣa-vyavahitaṁ, separated from harm. So the mind separated from harm is like gold separated from dirt. So again, it's somehow related with being wrong is the best friend we've got in this work. It's not a question of running away from harm. Patrick MacDonald spoke about looking the bugger in the eye. We don't want to celebrate faults and harms like doubt. We don't want to affirm them, except insofar as we don't deny. We don't want to be in denial about harms, doṣa, any more than the gold miner is afraid of dirt. It's out of the dirt, that it's in the dirt where the gold particles lie. Doṣa-vyavahitaṁ, but the practitioner, having said all that, the work is to separate the mind, which is like gold, from doṣa, harm, which is like dirt. But having said that, this is a difficult part of the verse for anybody who hasn't had, but in my case, I would never have understood this without Marjorie Barlow's input, telling me that being wrong is the best friend that we've got in this work. So being wrong is the best friend we've got in this work is the antidote to trying to be right. Trying to be right is like wanting the gold without dealing with the dirt, which wouldn't get you very far as a gold miner. That might be the attitude of the financial manipulator more than the proper gold miner. The guy in Wall Street who doesn't get his hands dirty uses rather more manipulative, sneaky means of getting his hands on the gold. Viśodhya, to be cleansed. So I was misled here by both E.H. Johnson and Linda Colville, who didn't translate this literally because they didn't understand it. Viśodhya means to be cleansed, and it suggests that viśodhya kleśebhyaḥ manaḥ on one level suggests the mind as object to be cleansed of afflictions. Kleśebhyaḥ, ablative, plural, from afflictions. So the difficulty in this, and this is a difficulty Nishijima Roshi would have understood very well, because one of his favourite themes was not being idealistic. So viśodhya kleśebhyaḥ manaḥ on one level of meaning means the mind to be cleansed of afflictions, means the mind as object to be cleansed of afflictions. So this is prapancha. Trying to be right is prapancha. So viśodhya, to be cleansed, kleśebhyaḥ, of afflictions. Samayati, he causes to melt. Or, at this level of meaning, he causes it to drop off. He drops off the idealism of and the prapancha of wanting, of objectifying, of othering the mind, of having some conception, some false conception of the mind, which is the object to be cleansed of afflictions. In that very conception, we're doing harm. We're preventing growth in trying to be right. Trying to be right, Madhuri Bali says, death and destruction. So it's the denial of idealism, but more profoundly, it's the denial of prapancha. It's the denial of making something an object. Śamayati. So he causes to melt. This is so important. See, I've translated it twice because I want to bring out the sense of the practitioner causes to melt the mind to be cleansed of afflictions. I want to capture both meanings. He causes the mind to melt means he drops it off. He drops off that mind. As a mind, as a samskara, as a confection, as a confected thing, as a fabricated thing, as a separate thing, as an object. He drops that off. But it also includes, so that is kind of a hard thing. It's like, no, fuck that mind. So it's kind of a hard intervention, which is necessary. It's like using a sword. No, like Manjusri in the Zendo holding a sword. We want to cut off idealism, but at the same time, on a deeper level, it's a softening. It's a prapancha upashamam, a melting away of prapancha. So there's the difficulty with Nishijima Roshi's teaching, in a sense. The truth of it is in that kind of negation of idealism. But that's only one level of truth, a deeper level of truth. It's not such a harsh cutting away or causing to drop off. It's a letting fall away. A letting fall away. But deeper than that, it's a causing to melt. It's something softening in our own mind. And that's the difficult part. Much easier to be hard and fast about it. It's like I'm right, he's wrong. That's prapancha. Projecting the wrongness onto the other. So again, it's related to this thing of being wrong is the best friend we've got, and linked again to the gold is there in the dirt. And it's not just a question of gold and dirt. We need something else as well, like the water of grace. Like in the previous canto. Charanatma ramo yadicha pibati priti shalilam. And as the practitioner goes around enjoying himself, if he drinks the water of grace. So water really is it's like the element of grace, isn't it? It's what helps us grow. Without it, we can't grow. So that might be a kind of hidden meaning in there, in this verse. In the second line, you see, there's no mention. There's ostensibly there's no mention of an element that corresponds to the water. He causes the mind separated with delicacy and accuracy from harm. So he causes śamayati. He causes the mind to melt. He causes the mind to melt. That's literally, śamayati means he causes to melt. He melts. But there has to be something corresponding to fire which might be suffering. And there has to be something in the separation from harm with delicacy and accuracy. There might have to be something like water. For me, something like water was Marjorie Barlow's teaching. To do with non-doing, with delicacy and accuracy. Nellie Benall's teaching too. That's where the words delicacy and accuracy come from, as I've described before. So those are really turning words. Viśodhya, kleśebhyaḥ, śamayati, manaḥ. He causes the mind. He causes to melt the mind to be cleansed of afflictions. Doṣa-vyavahitaṁ. Viśodhya, kleśebhyaḥ, śamayati, manaḥ. He causes the mind, separated with delicacy and accuracy from harm, to melt. Nipuṇam, doṣa-vyavahitaṁ, viśodhya, kleśebhyaḥ, śamayati, manaḥ. He causes the mind, separated with delicacy and accuracy from harm, to melt. Saṁkṣipati cha. And then he collects it. So again, it's the first step is we separate the mind from harm. And then separate the mind from harm and cause it to melt. Then we collect it. So it's like the first step is always we enter the stream by not trying to be right. Trying to be right, there's a hardness about it, a hard-headedness. When that softens, then we can samadhi, prajna. Shila, samadhi, prajna. So that's the last verse of the canto, really. The prajna, with the softened mind. One roves among the powers of knowing. But I'll just limit myself to this verse for now. So here's the translation so far. You translating krameṇā as gradually, and nipuṇam with delicacy and accuracy. So suggesting krameṇā as gradually, suggesting the incremental approach, starting off with wanting little, and nipuṇam with delicacy and accuracy, emphasizing the non-doing aspect of yoga practice. As a smith in this world takes gold washed with water, gradually separated from dirt, and in the fire he melts the gold, and then he turns it over and over. So does a practitioner in this world cause to melt the mind to be cleansed of afflictions. He causes the mind, separated with delicacy and accuracy from harm, to melt, and then he collects it. krameṇādbhiḥ śuddhaṁ kanakam pāṁsu-vyavahitaṁ yathāgnau karmāraḥ pacati bhṛśam āvartayati ca tathā yogācāro nipuṇam iha doṣa-vyavahitaṁ viśodhya kleśebhyaḥ śamayati manaḥ saṁkṣipati ca